Hi, everybody. Let's unmute and say hello.
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 Hello. Hello. I just did a reminder on the main chat. So I'd like to give people a minute or two to come in. It's lovely to see you. It's beautiful energy in here. I feel like it's literally coming into a room. And when I first came in, Marcy and Akiko, I could see you both. And there was such a contemplative vibe. I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Ooh. Well, this is exciting.
No, it's not open. No. Ah, sorry.
Very dramatic. Hi, Dieter. Feel free to unmute.
Thank you.
Mine
Sorry,
are
I just come from the US.
You just come.
Mine are teenagers and they're still in bed, so they won't bother us. It's 11 a.m. where I am.
Me too. So you must be on the West Coast, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Of the US, yeah. Where's everybody else?
I am in England, in the southwest of England, in Dartmoor.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's 2 minutes past 7. I'm sorry, I'm late.
In the afternoon, evening. Hi, Midi.
Hi, Claire. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Midi.
Let's see, Julie, do you want to join us? Join us? Hi, Shanti. Hi, Julie. Feel free to unmute everyone, unless you have a noisy background. It feels a bit more natural to breathe in the same space without muting. So I feel very excited and very grateful. So I want to express my gratitude. I feel like something is being invited out of me and what I have to offer because of your kindness and because of your own curiosity in terms of how you're approaching your lives and your work. And so I'm resonating with that, and it's allowing me to be self-accepting, self-generating, and to keep adding things into the presentation that I'm going to share with you. And the reason I want us to be unmuted, if possible, is because it makes me feel less didactic, less like I'm just sort of putting something to you, and more that I'm sharing something with you. There are about 30 slides, but in a way, this is the children's book. So it's about dynamic emergence, but it's I referred that to Midi because she and I had a brief conversation about it the other day. But then I've been adding things in because I'm simultaneously this weekend have been in a dowsing conference. And so that's all about energy, earth energies. And yeah, and in fact, it's still ongoing, it's free. So I can give you all the link to that. And if you wanted to, you can come anytime today to that, because there are talks going on, and I'm actually giving a talk there. It's part of it's pre-recorded because of it being virtual, and then part of it is then in person, but it's more focused on sound dowsing, so a slightly different take on things. So if I forget, please remind me. In fact, why don't I do that now, because then I can't forget. Hang on. Dowsers. So that's it. And then when you go to that, you have to register, but that's not a payment process. It's just so that they can then email you links to get in. And I believe on the home page there is a, well, you'll see it. If you get confused, just contact me through the network and I'll help. I think my talk is 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. in case you wanted to be there specifically for that. Okay, so the plan, because I think we have an hour and a half. So the plan is to share the slides with you and to then have us consider, and I'm going to put a question forward right now, which I'm going to repeat at the end for us to reflect on and then share on. And just a little reminder, even moving bits of paper or pens makes a sound. So just be mindful of that. That would be great. So let me find that question. Okay, so because of the context that we're in this conference, I'm asking that question at the end. Of course, you don't know what I'm referring to specifically when I say knowing this, but the question I invite you to have as a companion when we look at this material is how does this affect my understanding of conflict and conflict resolution? How might it change ways I explore and experiment with those two things or have a relationship with those two things? Can we just take like 15 seconds just to say our name into the room and something that describes how we're feeling today, just to kind of connect us group wise? I'll go. I'm Claire and I'm feeling grateful and excited to be with you. And I pass on to Marcy.
I'm Marcy, and I am also feeling excited and happy to be joining this gathering.
And thank you, and please pass it on to somebody.
Oh, yes, and I will pass on to Akiko.
Oh, hello. My name is Akiko. I'm in Sweden, and I'm very curious about what will happen tonight. Thank you. I will send it to Dita.
Thank you, Kiko. I'm Dita. I'm in Dartmoor in the UK, and I'm feeling quite frazzled because I've had a really crazy day and quite excited to be here in resonance and feeling the resonance very much. And I pass it to Vinita.
Hello, I'm Vinita. I'm calling from the UAE. I'm feeling quite curious. I'm looking forward to what emerges.
Thank you. And who would you pass it on to, Vinita?
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Kat.
Hello. Thank you, Vinita. My name is Catalin. I live in Toronto, that's in Canada. It's really hot today, but I love it. And it's been a lot of video conferencing and faces. Luckily, most of them are smiling, and that's one of the best things. But yeah, it's a lot of people and a lot of heart and a lot of words.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. And
Thank you. Oh, Kat, pass it on. I think actually it might just be Shanti who's left.
Julie, you might be the...
Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and it's hot as well here. Yeah, just glad to be here, and I've been a bit distracted because there are 2 flies flying around, so you see me swatting, that's why.
You haven't gone mad.
Indeed.
And I think, Shanti, you might be the last person, so let's pass it on to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry you can't see my lovely face, but you can hear my lovely voice. It's a beautiful day here, and somewhat muggy and hot, but otherwise I'm quite happy. I like the summer. And I'm so grateful to be here with all of you, and very curious to see kind of what will unfold over the next hour and a half or so. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to go into presentation mode. This is always a slightly nerve-wracking moment. I don't think I need to share my computer sound. And
don't worry, Claire. We'll just be making grades and yeah, ranking.
You got my number. Ironically, the first slide will make you laugh. Actually, not this first slide, but the first slide. So the second slide. So I'm sharing with you Dynamic Emergence. Just briefly to contextualize it. I have a background as, apart from being a human being that's been completely confused most of my life about why I feel what I feel, what to do about what I feel, why I feel differently from how other people might be thinking I should be feeling. So a lot of feeling stuff. So over many years, I became a healer and an artist. I've been an artist probably all my life. And I have this mind that really likes to understand how things work. And so because my emotional confusion was such a persistent prompter, over time, I just asked a lot of questions. I mean, I read a lot of books, so I asked questions on the terrestrial level, but I've also been asking questions in the other realms, in the hope of finding a sense of belonging and peace, I think, peaceful understanding. So, and I hope to pass this on to people. All of you quite likely will be familiar with what I'm sharing. And so in some senses, for some people, it's really just an offering of a model that has helped me feel sane and okay, just as I am. But it might also help people who are helping people have reference points that they could pass on to them if they want to in their journey. And this becoming fully human in a time of crisis is something that came about in conversation with Ben at the Now What conference last year, not the one that we've just had. And so I've added that in because I want to humanize what I'm sharing with you. And bearing in mind that some of the language is more youthful that you'll see, it's because this is sort of a children's or young person's book, but much like a film that's designed for younger people, it's also relevant and accessible to adults. So the cosmology of being human, this is an inherently creative process, this process of becoming, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of engaging, interacting, and discovering. So just because it felt right for some odd reason, this sentence starts on this side. And I'm just making this observation that we are all these things. We're energetic, we're biological, we're cosmological, we're spiritual, we're creative, we're evolving. We are embedded. We're embedded in this earth. We're embedded in the sense of having a body or being a body, depending on how you look at that. We live in an interdependent complexity of reciprocal living systems. So in other words, we are attached, we are connected, we are interconnected, and everything we do travels through this shared field of energy. We orient towards a collective holistic growth in our ideal place of being when we're being conscious. This is what we're gearing towards with creative play, discovery, mutuality, and symbiotic evolution. That comes down to a tenet, I guess, of my own, which is that our evolution, our individual evolution, is the evolution. So in other words, we cannot force an evolution outside of ourselves. but we participate in our co-evolution by being mindfully present to ourselves. So it's a win-win. It's a yes and. If I'm evolving, I'm contributing to our evolving. So the cosmos, this is where we go into the slightly the other voice. The cosmos is made up of vast amounts of energy that move and flow with phenomenal creativity. And as this energy moves, plays and interacts, it generates and creates universes and galaxies. Now, I just want to hide the video panel. That's not working. How do I hide the floating meeting controls? There we go. So these galaxies have names, and ours is obviously, as we know, the Milky Way. And that Milky Way, our Milky Way, is made up of exactly the same energy that flows and interacts throughout the whole universe that created the Milky Way. So that energy is just continues to flow through all of it, all the matter. And so our Earth resides in the Milky Way. We're living here. And so therefore we're part of Earth's creative, flowing and interactive energy system, literally right now as I speak. That energy is flowing through us, it's giving us form, it's alivening us. So since we're part of the Earth and the Milky Way, that same energy that inhabits us and creates the galaxies and the planet inhabits and creates us. It's natural. So the energy flows through us and it's part of a constantly creating impulse, and it gives us our form and it gives us our movement. As the energy travels through us, we also create from it. Our bodies think, feel and move. And this energy dances through us, around us, and it emanates from us. It gives us form, vitality, and it also gives us ideas. And there's a relevance which we'll come to in these colors of this sort of showing the moving energy. So the energy that allows us to generate ideas, that's what obviously we use, as we know, to generate systems of our own. So humans are very good at manipulating the physicality of life, and it's from that that we get to create societies all around the world. I would say that part of the human journey is about evolving our ideas and developing our relationship to these energy patterns, the flow of the universe. And so in order to do that, we have to understand our own relationship, each of us. What is the relationship that we have to the energy? And when we learn how to interpret what the energy is saying, we can become adept at interacting with it. So this definitely affects literally everything. It affects how we experience our reality and how we have an impact on other people's reality, whether they're aware of it or not. This interactive flow of energy connects us both to the larger home, which is our planet and cosmos, and our more personal home, which is what's sitting here today together, the body, the heart, and the mind. This learning path, our evolutionary learning path, is our birthright. It's our gift. It's the gift to us and it's our gift to each other. So I am saying that we know ourselves. We really know ourselves when we know the magic of our planet, its sentience and its aliveness, and the magic of ourselves. So our own sentience, our own aliveness. And this connection is based on different ways of knowing, different ways of being as energy in motion. This right here is kind of the heart of what dynamic emergence, which I'll define a bit later on, is speaking to. So I used to teach at San Francisco State University, and I used to teach students about Howard Gardner's intelligences. He's the gentleman that talks about multiple intelligences. And so those are, you know, like rational knowing, mathematical, musical, associative. Like he's got all these different ways of looking at intelligence, and they're wonderful. But there's a lot of them. So I was curious to know, well, can we condense those down? And similar to some other models that I've seen, I feel like we can. And that's the rational, emotional, and sensory. What I love about that is RES, res, which is short, of course, for resonance, which is a lot of what this is about. So on the left here, you can see, I'm mentioning this, that we've got these 4 ways of knowing. There is intuitive as well, which I've kind of encircled here. And I'm also calling that the not knowing. So in order to really know well, of course, we need to not know anything. And that enables us to become more permeable, more accessible, both to receiving information, but also to touching it, feeling it, intuiting it. So that wiser circles of being that we inhabit can speak through us and to us more easily when we sit and reside in a space of not knowing, but being aware that we have these faculties to think, to feel, and to sense. And another aspect of the model is my concern for Indigenous people's wisdom and their presence on the planet or in the planet, again, depending on how you look at this, because they have unique ways that are still alive in their rituals, in their life, their daily life, that must be protected. So the more we can understand that they exist and that they have purpose, and I'm hoping that people might consider those as part of sensory knowing. So again, just to recap, we can access these connections, these ways of knowing, because they are sort of portals in a way to extended dimensions of wisdom and learning. We access those through our own energy fields, and they're just there. They're just there in us. So we don't have to grow like these faculties. It's not like we have to grow an extra arm in order to become wise, creative, intelligent, responsive, and capable of learning new things that maybe we have disagreed with in the past even. But we just have to go further in with a curiosity, I would say, to expand these ways of knowing that we have. And they can give us direct knowledge, which is beautiful. So instead of having to go straight, spend time reading lots of books, we actually have access to deep wisdom that is just there 24/7. So it's sort of a constant radio show of knowledge. And as we do that, I think it helps us develop our emotional wisdom, our ability to think rationally, but in ways that enhance life rather than deconstruct it, and also to feel the aliveness of other beings. How we show up, our idea of how we know, literally affects everything about what's possible next. And we're each different. We each have a different knowing bias. So some people are more heady, some people are more emotional, and some people are more sensory. So if you're facilitating a conflict situation, then you'll notice, you already know how some people will speak with more heady language, thinking, I think. Some people feel, we use the word feel for both emotions and sensing, but we understand that there are different ways of presenting and processing ideas and knowledge and information. The beautiful thing for us to think about, I think, is to recall the huge, vibrant galaxial conversations. So that energy that we looked at the beginning in the photos of space or the images of space, that energy is what's talking through us. But because we're embodied, we condense it and it turns into ideas and thought forms that we get very attached to. But also, and that can lead to the conflict, because we want our ideas to be perhaps the dominant ideas, or we fear that if our ideas aren't dominant, that they won't be included at all. And that does actually happen quite often. So our ways of knowing influence our ways of being, which means we have different activities, needs, and practices. And I can share this with you at a later time, but it just shows some of the ways that our rational knowing, how we can facilitate our connecting. So our rational knowing, often we have used it, we've been trained to use it to separate ourselves from a holistic vision of life, a holistic experience of life. But we can actually use it for dreaming and daydreaming, pattern analysis to understand how we belong, not how we're separate. Futuring that bears in mind things like our interdependence, our deep ecology, our interconnection, our ancestral, intuitive, and nature's knowing, nature's own inherent knowing, not just the nature of knowing. And then the emotional, the connection, our relating, compassion, communication, social investment, empathy. And I'm suggesting that our deep listening is enhanced through using our imagination, our ability to associate between these different ways of knowing and being, and our intuition. And my hope and deduction really is that if we can do that, then it makes sense that we can start to make really good decisions that have a sustainability built into them. And then there are cultures around the world that use different approaches to connecting, to understanding, to relating, and to discovering, and to growing a life and growing communities. I'll just pause for a second so you can have a look at that. I like this one, hugging. Okay. And this one got added today because of the Dowsers conference, which was this thought that perhaps the most important thing we can do for the future of life is these things. And this is a message to myself first, really, because when I feel my feelings with full acceptance, when I recognize the activity in an environment and how I'm feeling in that environment with honesty, when I can use my mind to articulate a need, like to identify a need, a feeling experience I'm having, and then to put it into words in ways that are receptive, gentle, and humble, as opposed to defensive or angry. Although we can't help that sometimes, it shouldn't be avoided. That this is what can increase our connectedness and also our energy field. So then the beauty of that for me is that for me, I soften, and instead of pushing for results, that urgency just softens and rests because it knows it can. And that's the beauty, I think, of empathy circles and good conflict facilitation. And I'm mentioning here that I feel like the earth, in a way, the earth's well-being is waiting for us to get really good at this. So the question I'm asking is, can we notice our emotional and our thought habit patterns and meet them kindly? And I'm asking you and whoever in the future is seeing this, do you know how to work with your energy field in a healthy way? Because we can learn to. So again, this is the other new slide that happened because of the Dowsing conference. So I'm really proposing here that we encourage people to take seriously feeling for their energy, that we give it form, and just as we validate mathematics and science, that we validate energy, the energy of the body, and how that relates to a healthy life, a strong immune system, good relationship capacity, and so on. And then in the bottom left, you can see this is the definition of dynamic emergence, which is kind of the model that encapsulates these ideas in a particular way. So it's the phenomena of novelty arising when two or more elements meet. So that could be me, like here, it could be a young man and his creativity or his imagination. It could be someone with another person, could be us with the whole energetic network of the cosmos or the planet. And then two really helpful ideas that support dynamic emergence are that first is that literally that nothing is fixed. And so that includes a problem, a conflict, the idea of the solution. Like none of these things are fixed, because if energy is constantly moving, that's part of its aliveness, then for an idea to remain fixed doesn't really mean that it's in keeping with the flow of time and space and what's happening in those two dimensions. And energy waits to be noticed. That's that beauty in a way you can think of it when we empathize with people. that energy gets noticed, it gets named, and it becomes at peace. It becomes at peace. Doing this together is easy in a living universe that is literally teeming with awareness. And the inclusivity part is really big for me. So I'm reminding us that we can't create a society. I'm imagining that maybe we're talking to people who are more left-brained, right? So they understand the rational world to a degree, but they haven't maybe had a chance to identify their feeling senses, both the sensory, but the emotional too, to different degrees. So I'm saying that that knowledge, the wisdom and knowledge that's inherent in each of the ways of knowing, is something we need in order to create a future that is there, A, and B, that is self-generating, is creative, is fulfilling, inclusive, and obviously therefore kind. So I think our magic lies in being able to do that by collaborating. So, and I'm just reminding also that there is indigenous wisdom. There are highly sensitive people. I'm sure many of us here today identify with that. Artists, and I recognize an artist as being someone who dances with reality. So a free-flowing kind of person might be another way of putting that. And introverts, who typically don't get much airtime in meetings, because the way for an introvert to articulate can take a lot longer to dig down into that well, and that requires space and some quiet for that to happen, and witnessing. So meetings don't often incorporate that unless they are dedicated to conflict resolution or mediation or facilitation. So as I say, again, important that we balance all these ways of knowing so that they can work together. That holistic knowing can create wise, versatile, and responsive systems. Right at the heart of who we are, we have this beauty. I mean, literally beauty, the seed of awareness. So we're at the center of all of this, and we're receiving information, we're giving information, not necessarily verbally, that's there too, of course, but we are consistently and persistently part of a vibrant creating cosmos and planet. And we can actually reach out. This is the part that I'm remembering, is that we can reach out to this extended network of presence. And different people call that different things. Some people call it God, some people call it the angels, some people call it spirit, some people call it Gaia or Terra, some people refer to it as all that is. There's a million ways that we make this reference, but it's a network of belongingness, and finding our way to relate to that, that's part of that humility. And also there's a wisdom and humility. So tuning into that, finding our own ways of tuning into that means we can actually engage with this very chatty universe that we're in. And there's a downside that we're experiencing at the moment. When we don't do that, when we don't listen deeply to other ways of being and knowing, we can really leave out very important things. And though this affects and is affecting right now the future, it's affecting our evolutionary process and the future. And so this conference and all of us coming here together is deeply inspiring, because it's a beautiful community building, which is a field building process. So between us I think the strengthening of our field, our collective field, is going to enhance the empathy, the ability for people to experience empathy, discernment, systemic understanding. The reason it matters, of course, is, and this is an important thing called the theory of inversion, or the inversion theory, which is right down here, is that when one of these is dominant, so here's dominant sensory, here's dominant emotional, here's dominant rational, it becomes the opposite of itself. And that's a very real phenomena. So when they're separate and they're not actually talking, so my sense of awareness is deeply embedded here, but it's not hearing these two, or I'm in a deeply rational state, but I'm not feeling either of these, or I'm deeply emotional and I can't think straight, we're fluid. And so when we get separated out like this, it's kind of isolating. It creates stress and anxiety. We can lose touch of our feeling of belongingness. We can start to obsessively think, oh, I have to fix this. I have to create things in the world. And we no longer feel the flow of energy. So we don't live as if we belong, at the worst case scenario, and that changes our behavior. So how we know affects how the energy flows. We create personalities, expectations, belief systems about how things work. And that energy flow changes how we see the world and therefore what we expect. So we're seeking compassionate, curious, cooperative, creative engagement. And this is just to show that we have our own energy fields and that they influence each other. When we're, even non-locally, we can influence each other. And that could be a good experience, or it can be not such a good experience. And so just being aware that those energy fields are tangible, and to be able to show people a diagram that shows the activity of our energy fields interacting, and they change millisecond by millisecond, could be really helpful for people who don't think about this kind of thing, or who think of it as just a new age phenomena, or woo-woo is a word I hear. So by creating, by understanding that there's something to dance with, we can explore liminal space and numinous space, which I would say are these borderlines in a way. Just they're imaginary, of course. These things aren't so distinct. Or if they are, that they're not shut off from each other. So we've got the collective consciousness, this one, and that's the part that whether we know it or not, whether we say it or not, we are influencing this shared field of creativity and of what's possible. That's housed by the our planetariness. So we're sort of miniature planets on legs, or miniature mountains with legs, but we're part of planet, we're part of nature expressing itself in this particular form for a reason, And that's housed in this cosmological context, this sort of this infiniteness that we saw at the very beginning, where our originating point, if you will, or wave. I've mentioned this before, so I won't stay long on this because I want to get us into a conversation. But just remembering that our imagination, the thing that as a young adult we might have been told, it's just your imagination. It's like, wow, that's like huge to reduce it to something that's small like that, because it's literally our transport system for choices we make and for beliefs we create and for how we travel in the world, in the universe. I can share this with you after the fact, but our imagination literally waits for us. So I think when we're doing conflict resolution, it's not like we can go straight to talking about imagination, but I think if we hold the possibility of imagination in our own field, I think it helps because of those fields of influence. I think it helps people to perhaps be open to a more inspiring solution that works for the other party. So we're very close to the end now. We dance. We're dancing this beautiful blue planet's atmosphere. We're swimming in her seas, drinking her water, breathing her air, eating her food, and receiving her energy. So that energy is our aliveness. Without it, we would not have aliveness. So thank you for joining me on this journey. And I kind of, because of some feedback from Helen Roberts, Ben's mother, I made this more prominent. And it's kind of a personal statement that I just want to share with you. And I'm just going to let you read it. And again, I can share it with you if you need more time, or I can come back to it if you need more time. So this is what's going to happen now. We're going to review, obviously there's a lot of information there, at least arranged perhaps in a slightly different way than other ways you might have experienced it so far. I don't know, I'll find out. But the question I'm asking is, what impact could this have on our relationship to conflict and conflict resolution? So I'm going to stop sharing. If I can find my controls. Okay, view. Okay, I can see you. Now I need to see my controls. Stop sharing. Okay, you made it. Thank you for being with that. Let's just sit for a minute. And I invite, please, any reflections, half sentences, whole sentences, thoughts, feelings. Yes, I think Kat, and then Marcy.
Thank you. The word, I mean, part of my reflections and flashes and images are around imagination. What a gift indeed. And also how sensitive that can be in imagining something bigger than us as being a space full of hope, or a place for all unknown things that can encroach on us. So, you know, fear and curiosity, I guess. And how to be more conscious of imagination going on and foaming up based on my fears or my hopes. And it's not easy to always distinguish these things, or to clarify, or to point out how somebody is speaking. Is it from their imagination of fear or imagination of, I guess, hope? So that's somehow what I have in mind, is how to present this picture. Because I think part of what comes to me is, if I come from this, so here's all the systems in which we are, and after that is done, now let's have a conversation, having had a map, so to speak. But then how to make sure, or how to go through all these steps and not feel like, oh, others, wonderful, but hey, they all want my piece of XYZ. Oh, the planet, yes, but it's so many things I don't know, and it's all the viruses now and bugs and things that I can't see, and how could I be friends with that, and so on and so on. The stars and the galaxies, you know, we can dream of. It's interesting how in different continents, aliens have different basic dispositions. In some places they get in us, in other places they swallow us. In some places they are visible too much, in other places they're invisible too much. and so on and so on. So imagination, it's hard to pinpoint. Anyway, that's what's in my mind right now. A bit confused and swirling, but there you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just want to say that the presentation really just spoke to or validated a very deep sort of core place in me, and that I really that I'm becoming more aware of and really wanting to learn more about. So I thank you.
You're welcome, Marcy. I'd love to hear more about. Are there any what is your sense of that place in you that you're learning more about?
I feel like I've always been very, very sensitive. I think I could definitely be described as a highly sensitive person. Although, and I think that I've always been this way. And I think that it could be I feel like it could be a superpower. And if I would have had an elder or someone bringing me up, teaching me about this and developing this part of me through time, whereas all I really had was a lot of trauma. I just feel like, wow, like there's something that I know exists that I want to learn more how to tap into. Things I noted, like knowledge and connection portals. Just, I think that my emotional and sensory is probably stronger than my rational, but none of them work really well together. They're not real integrated. So, but I feel that I can, that I know that is out there, and that I'm sure I already do have access to it, but that I could learn to work with it in a much greater way. Does that help?
That's exciting to me to hear that for you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
It's funny because we're in a field right now. We're in a shared field, which means that speaking or not speaking, it's generating new ways to think about things for me too. So whilst you were talking, Marcy, and I was 100% listening to you, there was also a part of my brain processing what you shared, and I think it's probably to do with imagination. One of the things that I know, Kat, I haven't said in your company, but I think I have in some of the other people's company in the room, is that imagination is 3 words in one. And so it's not just imagination from the perspective of something that is playful and either good or bad, or attracting something that feels good or feels less good. But magic nation, right? And so a nation, we think of a nation as a body politic, right? The USA is a nation, or I don't know if we think of Africa as a nation. Great Britain is a nation. So that just means it has lots of people in it, and it's a territory. So, but this is also a territory, and a situation is a territory. So they can be physical and non-physical. So if I choose to engage with my imagination, then magi, M-A-G-I, the etymology of that is sorcery, alchemy, or astrology, or astronomy, amongst other things. So I choose the alchemy version because it's useful for this context. So it means that we're willing to work with, to alchemize doesn't just mean we change something outside of us, but it does mean that we're willing to re-experience something in a different way, the possibility of experiencing something in a different way. So if we wanted to, we could think of imagination that way, which is kind of neutral in terms of outcomes, but localized in here. So that just comes to mind. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Hi, Liza. Benita. Benita.
Yeah. For me, what came up was the whole potency of energy that we experience every moment of our life.
Mm.
We experience energy of the other person. We experience the energy of our own inner environment and the energy of the space, external space we are in. Even we can perceive the energy of the other person's thought.
Yes.
It impacts us in some way. We don't know what the other person is actually thinking, but depending on that, something happens. Something happens here based on what the other person is thinking. And I think it has a huge role to play in relationships, in the way we engage with each other, in the way we perceive things, in the way we are perceived. And when we are talking about conflict and we are talking about conflict resolution, it's such a fine work of awareness and, you know, creating that, I don't know whether I'm using the right words, but just what's coming to my mind, creating that right flow of the balanced flow of energy. I don't know whether there's something like that, balanced flow of energy, but a conscious act of engaging with energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, just some thoughts coming up, and how does one really, it's such a fine matter of life, the energy, that how does one engage with it, how does one navigate, how does one really be with it, to be that energy which is positive, which is moving us forward, which is enabling and empowering. Yeah, that's what came up for me.
Mm. Thank you.
And I have a question also. Something that came up from the slides, that in that slide were 3 things that impact deep listening. Imagination is one of them. You said intuition, imagination, and there was another.
Association.
Association, intuition, and imagination.
Yes. Yes.
So can you talk a little bit on how imagination impacts listening? a deep listening? Because I can look at association, I can intuition. How does imagination is a function of mind? So how does that impact deep listening was the question that came up for me.
It might be simpler than if you had asked me to explain association. So I'm almost surprised.
Yeah, but you can pick from wherever you would like.
I mean, I might be oversimplifying it, but here's a good example. I love walking in the forest, and I love walking by the sea. But I think in particular in the forest, when I allow my imagination to lead me, I start having really mystical experiences in relationship to the elemental energy in the forest. And what I experience in terms of my imagination, and I do kind of experience it up here, as you gestured as well, is an incredible sense of playfulness and willingness, openness. And you might almost say that the opposite, I'm just going to experiment with this thought out loud, that the opposite of imagination is cynicism, is negating, is the knowing, no, as in N-O, like this is just a tree, this is just a path, that's just a creek. And I could bypass the complexity, I don't know if the word effluence is right. For some reason that comes to mind. I'll have to look that one up. But the liminalness, I think imagination and liminal, to me, the imagination, my imagination is what allows me to find the liminal in a space. Does that help?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I'm just thinking aloud. I think it's also perhaps in the way we understand words. We might have a different way of understanding certain words.
I would imagine.
Because what you are saying, from that, what's coming to me is sensing.
Right. Yes.
What you are explaining as imagination, it's coming to me as sensing.
I'm glad you said that.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us still?
Yeah, so I've just turned off my video. I think I was not able to hear. So when for imagination for me is a very pure function of just mind, which can actually, according to how I understand it, the way I use the word can come in the way of listening.
Yes.
Whereas sensing is deep listening. That's how I'm perceiving it. That's why that word stood up for me, that how does imagination impact the deep listening?
I'm with you. I resonate with that. I've added into the chat, Benita, because you saying that helps me to re-articulate for myself, you know, where I am in relation to what you're saying. And I realize it is sensing. So if I'm in the forest, I'm sensing, just like you said, I'm sensing. So that's my field. And I'm sensing aliveness and story. And I guess my imagination is what turns it into the experience of story, which gives it that feeling of the magical. So it is the relation of mind to the sensory in that way. So I very much relate to what you're saying. Akiko, are you sitting?
Thank you.
Julie was before me, but.
Oh, sorry, who?
Julie was before.
Julie, please. I had the little chat box right on top of you.
Yeah, I feel I agree with the various articulations of imagination. I feel with imagination, there's a kind of element of formation.
Yes.
You know, like the thing that knits together, and it's I suppose it's a function of mind, but it feels like it's also gathering of the senses, making a kind of translation, and allowing things to collide that might not normally.
Ooh, that gave me
so yeah, there's that active part of imagination, which includes, yeah, just for me, it's about making form. Even if it's in the imaginal realm, it's making form, and so I think you talk about emergence, and so it's got that quality of emergence. It's something that's coming into being. You know, that the creative act. I have a bias as someone who's a creative as well, so it's yeah, imaginations feel very native to me, and yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to add.
I'm so glad you did. I got goosebumps then. I put some notes in the chat.
Can I speak?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was just in the zone. Yes, please.
Yes. I don't know. The thing you showed us, I really thought that I kind of knew all this, but I didn't have this kind of word and everything, and I kind of thought that I can be fully human or without having any difficulties, but I got this sickness last year, and I was like, what have I been doing wrong? I thought, but then now I understood that this becoming this sick, or yeah, letting myself become sick, open up lots of things. And the thing you said, feeling the energy, I thought I was feeling it, but now I'm feeling it more. And so I have a question to you. Is there any way I can feel it more?
Well, you just made my whole field beam. I love hearing that question. I think when we ask that question, we're already setting a new intention. So you asking that question is the most powerful thing you could do. And what happens next is that you start getting answers. You start getting instincts and intuitions and insights and whispers. And all you have to do is listen for it, feel you're listening, notice what you notice. You know, you might be in a bookstore and see a particular book title that is a message for you, or overhear a conversation, or just notice a thought traveling in the front of your mind, or a memory or a dream. But I think this is where imagination becomes a connector between us and the imaginal realms, the not yet visible. Vanita saying that happens all the time. Exactly. I wrote a song about this happening. It's called I'm not sure what answers questions that we need. so you walk down the aisle, books on either side. You know that you are waiting for just one to catch your eye, and then I forget how it goes. I can send the link, it's on SoundCloud, but it's a song I wrote years ago about how the universe listens to our mind and responds to us. And to me, that is the beauty. And I think perhaps earlier in life, it was hard for me to see that because I experienced a lot of tragedy. And so I didn't like the universe. I didn't think it was a safe place. I didn't think it was a kind place. And I certainly didn't like God, this idea of God, for the same reasons. And so I think that's why I traveled through the energy of life without all the theology, because it's less triggering, and yet it's the earth. The earth is energy, so it kind of bypasses the complications for me of theology. And that's still an issue for me, because it's like, am I costing myself something by having trouble with theological language and references? You know, do I lose something in the dimensionality of the spirit of life, of spirit and divinity? So I live with that question. So, but you're listening, if you experiment with just saying to the universe in your imagination, I am open, I am curious.
Okay, thank you. I will do it more. Thank you very much.
See what happens. And I always have a little notebook with me, or I do voice texts when an idea comes, or a thought, or a whisper. Feel how it travels through your energy field. If your body tingles a bit, or you get the goosebumps, or a sense of like, oh, that's that second tenet, energy waits to be noticed.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Shanti.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I think I resonate a lot with what you just said, Claire. And I think that maybe I feel like there's something about allowing space within ourselves that somehow allows us to open up to the universe and imagination. Because I think I'd been closed and that I wasn't able, it's like by becoming numb and shutting down maybe the things that were causing pain, I was also shutting down my creativity and my ability to for possibilities of any kind, really. And I've noticed in the last week or so, or 2 weeks actually, that it's starting to open up inside. And now everywhere I go, there are all sorts of things that are almost coming to me. Not me creating them, really, coming to me from the universe almost around me. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes.
Especially outside when I'm in nature. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very uncanny, because sometimes when we go through life processes and when we are internally blocked, yes, we want to do certain things, or we keep thinking about something and we feel blocked externally also. And when we open that little space inside, the things start flowing, coming, just what Shanti was saying just now, that they're just presenting them, they start presenting themselves and being a part of our life, and it becomes a flow. From that little opening, something starts flowing from in to outside and outside to in, and the universe just opens up.
Yes.
Sometimes I notice that sometimes I'm not aware that some space has opened up in me. When something starts presenting, then I start thinking, what happened? And then I realize what has happened within me, that this is being presented to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Midi, I'm so aware of your presence. You have such a beautiful way of just being fully present.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I have been fully present. I noticed at the start of this session that it wasn't noticed that I hadn't said anything by way of introduction. And that was a beautiful invitation for me to feel that I had been heard already, didn't need to say anything. And it was a great relief because my external world has required my presence outside the summit in a couple of meetings today. And I feel like I've been in meetings that have been very rational, in the very rational piece. And the slide presentation had me feeling I was in the same space. Mm-hmm. And because we were talking about a model, we were being shown a model, and then we were having a conversation about the model. And I realized that I had nothing rational to receive or give. And so I just noticed I was sensing an awful lot, and it's been a big journey for me, because it's been a journey in this session of really appreciating that I can be in a space with other people when they are in rational space, and clearly from some things that have said, getting important stuff from it, and how beautiful it is to just to be present in myself and allow myself to be in what may seem another space, but is really just part of this cosmic whole. I've just been in sensing space. And I woke up and sort of was even more present when you laughed, Claire. You're one of the people in the world who has the most amazing laugh. Someone spoke about it in another session of yours. There's a joy in, laughter is funny, I find. Laughter can be cruel, it can be joyful, it can be sad, but you have just such a up energy of laugh that it carries me with it. So that's what's been going on for me.
That is so lovely.
Yeah. So if I would answer the question, well, what the model enabled me to do was to recognize very clearly that I was in sensing space, and that was a different space from some other people in a particular moment, and maybe not so different in other moments. But just allowing myself to be where I am and not making any demands upon anybody else to be. I can remember back to times when the irritable Midi would have said, "Oh, for fuck's sake, not another rational meeting,"
Yes.
I mean, because a lot of my life has been spent, a lot of my professional life has been spent with people who naturally occupy rational headspace and do it very finely. But it was just so freeing, you know, and there didn't need to be any conflict if I would just allow myself to be here exactly how I am, and everybody else to be here exactly how and where they are. And what a pleasurable hour and something. It's been actually really relaxing and restoring. So
Well,
thank you all.
yes,
Thanks everybody.
That's the group energy, isn't it? And you have done it so beautifully, Midi. I've been aware of your presence from the beginning, from the second you were online. So you definitely carry, for me, you carry an invitation to there's a quietness in it, but there is a playfulness there too. It's like you notice things. I see that about you. And it's funny, you know, because when I was doing the presentation, there was a certain point during it where I was so bothered by the fact that I couldn't see you and we couldn't do it more conversationally. And it's like, oh, this is just so heady. So I had the thought, and I was disappointed because it worried me. It's like, oh, maybe they're all thinking it's too heady. And because I couldn't see you, I thought maybe they've all gone. Maybe I'm talking to an empty room. Like, so, I mean, all of that activity was happening. But then I could hear a clock, and every so often I could hear like a giggle or something. And I was like, oh, thank God, there's at least one person's still here. But to see my tiny little screen, I had to kind of remove the humanity from it. And it's like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be engaging with the humans, you know, but I do want to convey the ideas because they might help us if they haven't already been thought of in this particular relationship, you know. So I live with that slight dilemma of choice between something like the model, they are helping, good, and just singing. It's like, as you might say, Midi, fuck it, I'll just sing. Oh,
I love that bit, by the way. In fact, I went straight to your SoundCloud and started looking. I want you to sing the song.
I think it's called Listen to Me. It is. It's called Listen to Me. I'll look for it right now. Hang on.
It just came to mind for me that this weekend, Claire and I were in a session where at the end, it was over. It was at the end of the session, but everyone just started making music of their own, of different kinds.
Yes.
There was the woman playing the flute, and then Claire's brought in, what was that instrument, by the way? It looked almost like a triangle or a chime or something, but it wasn't quite.
This. I don't know if you can see the screen. This?
I can't, but if I remember, it was something like a wind chime.
Yeah, it is. It's bamboo.
Yes, it was beautiful. And then she sang, and then a couple other people began humming, and then somebody else brought some random like appliance from their kitchen and started turning that into an instrument. And there was just something, it felt like that was a manifestation of exactly what you've been talking about this whole time. Like, it was just like everybody was sort of bringing their own energy, and it came together just naturally in the moment. It was just so beautiful. And I find myself right now, especially with the pandemic going on, like my friend Sam and I, we'll play the guitar together and just go back and forth writing lyrics and, you know, putting together something. It's just quite it's like a dance almost, and I find myself missing that. And after that session that we had this weekend, I found myself thinking, well, how can we now I'm thinking, how can we use maybe some of the lessons that we learned from today to create that atmosphere for ourselves, just like what happened this weekend, and have some sort of a jam session of any kind, really. It could be with music, but it could also be with any other kind of imaginative, creative work play of sorts. I because I think what has happened to me, like what I was talking about, is that it's not really quite only that I'm creating, but also the universe is coming to me or bringing me things in ways. And in a way, that's, even when it's just me and the world, it's not just me, really, isn't it? It's co-creation with the universe and everything that's happened in my past that's kind of informing me and the person I am today, and everything that's around me, all my surroundings, and so I'm really interested in the kind of this idea of co-creation and how all of us could perhaps create together. I don't know, it's just a question I'm putting out there, or a yearning perhaps.
You mean
So
by
perhaps we could in the moment, Shanti.
Yes, we could.
How would we do that?
Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but I have a clothespin in my hand and I'm just clicking it back and forth. And well, I started with that, and maybe someone has something else to offer. I wish I had my screen, because then we could bring some movement and art into it, even if we wanted to.
I'll do the movement.
Oh, very nice, Smitty. I wish I could see you all. There's something about me not being able to see all of you that's just heightening my other senses. Like I'm feeling into all your laughs and your energy more in some ways. I think in the same way that maybe someone who's deaf or blind or...
Well, Marcy's got a rattle, an amazing looking rattle.
I can hear it, yes. Oh, I hear one of the instruments from this weekend.
Yep.
And there's a new one.
Water bottle.
Oh.
Oh yes, if you have a water bottle, you can flip it up and down, and it will be like it could kind of the way someone does with a rain stick.
Oh.
And
Here's a picture, some art, water.
oh.
Oh, I like that one. What's that?
I'll need to scoot. Thank you so much, everyone. See you all on a different Zoom. Thank you, Claire, for making this happen.
Thank you.
Hi, Katalin.
Hi, Katalin. It was nice to hear you.
Bye.
So remember also, if you want to go to get some dowsing influence in your day, the link is in the top of the chat. I will repost it, because I think in case together and all for participating. Oh. Yeah, so this is really, I'm very grateful for your attention, your participation, your presence, your contributions, your thoughts, your wisdom, your experience, your openness, your warmth, and your willingness. It's very heartening and humbling, actually, in a nice, very nice way.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Just breathing out.
Would I be asking too much if I could ask you to treat us to your harmonium and some of your voice again, just for a little, as we close out?
I can do that. Does that work for everyone? Hang on.
It makes me feel so peaceful every time I hear it.
Me too. I'm just moving away from the mic. Oh, I can feel the big sounds. I'm so glad you asked.
So grateful.
It's exactly 12:30. That's perfect. I'll upload this. and
Yay.
put it on the network.
Beautiful.
Oh, Eliza, she sang with me. I almost said sing, and I just thought, oh, they'll sing if they feel like it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Midi. Thank you, Vinita. Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Shanti. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Akiko. And thank you to Kat for coming.
Thank you.
See you in the universe of our network.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. Bye for now.
Bye for now.